everybody. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of Real Raw Relationships Unfiltered. Today's episode, I'm talking with Jason Tuttle. He's a teacher, a husband, and a father who lost his son in 2022. In the middle of that pain, he wrote, and out of that darkness came what he now calls the male grief commandments. This one's for the men who are told to be strong and silent, for the women trying to reach them and feeling walls are in the way, and for anyone who's ever loved and lost and had no damn clue what to do next. So if you're ready to get real, get raw, let's go!
Welcome to the carnival, I'm the ringleader now. They won't hear a sound at all as I bury you 6 feet underground.
Anyway, the way that I learned was you can say that you're healing and you can say that you're growing, but when you actually start helping other people, that's the way that actually grows. So I'm really curious. Can you go through these commandments with me? Because I'd really love to hear them. What does each one mean? Why do they matter? What do people get wrong about it? So let's just go through each one real quick.
Okay, I started it with a beginning sentence that all of these go with, and it starts with men shall be allowed to ... Number one, share, show, and express their innermost feelings and emotions without ridicule or judgment. And what I mean by that, in fact, I've seen things recently online about it, especially with the younger generation. I have seen so many times online where I hear a lot of the younger generation women that say, well, I want a sensitive man. Great, wonderful. Or a sensitive, strong man. But what they don't realize is there are things that come with a sensitive and strong man. There are boundaries there. You've got to be, one, emotionally available, and you have to be emotionally mature to be able to have someone like that. But to go back, what I was saying was, I've seen a lot online where these younger women say, well, I want an emotional man. But the moment that they're emotional, these women start ridiculing and talking about how unmacho they are, talk about their manhood, all the typical cheap shots that someone would take with that. And I tell women all the time, I go, look, most men are not going to be here to cry on your shoulder. That's not what I'm saying at all. Even I'm not that way. But when we get to the point of wanting to share something with you, it is important to us. So if you're going to sit there and ridicule it, do you think there's a good chance we're going to come back to you? Hell no. So, it's the age-old thing that men will say, you want something, but then I give you what you want and you contradict yourself. So what do you really want? That's kind of where that comes from.
Right. That whole, nobody's I did a podcast on it. They're not emotionally available. Why can't I find emotionally available? But it's because they are the ones that are emotionally unavailable, right? Yep. So give me the next one.
Number 2, men shall be allowed to not have their feelings invalidated or blown off because they're not as good or important as others, especially spouses, but not just limited to them. What I mean by that is, if I feel like something is important to bring to my wife and her first response to me is, why are you bringing this to me? I can't believe you're upset about this. Some comment in that kind of arena, what that tells me subconsciously is my feelings are important and your feelings are more important, because you, as my wife, expect me to, when you want to vent and not have me try to solve things as most men want to do, and you just want to vent. If that's what you want from me. You don't want me to do that. But if you come to me and say one of those comments, it just tells me that the only feelings that matter in this relationship are yours.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you wonder why I'm not coming to you, first of all, you've ridiculed me and now you're blowing off what I'm saying. So why would I come to you?
Right, which is oftentimes a miscommunication in the first place, right? Because
Hmm.
she's sitting there and saying, "Well, what about my feelings? My feelings matter more in
Hmm.
this situation." And you're like, "No, my feelings matter." And there is no happy medium, right? Because then she's like, "Well, I'm the female. I'm allowed to have this emotional
Hmm.
dysregulation. You're the male. You're not supposed to have that, right? Because
Yep.
it's unknown or it's new or it's scary for
Hmm.
women too, because they're like, wait, I can't be okay to show my emotions if you're showing
Hmm.
your emotions. So let's
Yep.
gaslight you essentially so that
Yep.
I can get back to me.
Yep.
Right?
Exactly.
Got you. Got you. Love it.
Uh,
All right. Go to the next
uh,
one.
all right. Men should be allowed to have the ability to get their feelings out versus holding them in and thus causing health issues.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of men don't feel what a lot of men feel, and I've heard this even recently, I've heard this. The reason why men don't open up is because they know through past experiences if they and their significant other get into an argument, get into a fight, if they open up and are vulnerable at this point, they know at some point it will get thrown back in their face.
Mm-hmm.
And most men, they'll deal with it once or twice, but if it's a continual thing, they'll either shut down or, you know, leave
Emotionally detached.
yeah, or possibly even leave the situation that they're in because this always, me as a man, I fully admit my man, I've had times where I've made mistakes. We have reconciled what those mistakes are when it comes to emotions and things like that. And once we're done, if we both agree that it's done, it's done. Don't keep
Mm-hmm.
bringing it back up. If we both agree that whatever penance has been made, and I've done that, then as so long as I don't do it again, don't keep bringing it back up. I've done this. I've supposedly learned from it, and you know, I don't want to keep, and I don't want to constantly throw them back in my face, just like my wife doesn't want me doing it to her.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. I call it
and
intentional forward thinking.
exactly, and with the health issues, I tell guys all the time, I said, do you want to know what if it's not number one, it's with top three, the number one cause of a death in men today? It's stress and heart attacks. Number
Mm-hmm.
one. And I said, if you don't have an outlet to get it out, I said, you either pay now or pay later.
Right.
And the analogy that I tell people all the time, or especially guys, I'll go, you're driving your car, you're going down the road, your check engine light comes on. You have a decision to make. Do you take into a mechanic reasonably soon thereafter? And although it may be expensive, you get it fixed. But if you keep pushing it, eventually it's going to get worse and worse and worse, and it's going to come really expensive.
Yeah.
So it's your decision. When are you going to pay for it?
Yeah. Right. Oh, you'll pay for it. It's just
Hmm.
right. Exactly. Not when you want it to. All
Hmm.
right, let's move on. What's the next one?
Okay, men should be allowed to uh, have the ability to seek help for their grief-related issues without judgment or scoffing from spouses, family members, or other men, i.e., to take on an active role in their help. A lot of the reason why men don't seek out, similar to like not going to the doctor for like medical issues, is because at least for men, I don't know about the younger generations, but I'm old enough, I'm Generation X. And we were always taught that if you do have moments, it's quiet, it's unto yourself, and you go right back to what you're doing.
Hmm.
Or, there's a reason why you get 3 bereavement days. You can do it during those 3 bereavement days, but once you're done, you go back to work. But that's not how grief works.
Hmm.
Grief just doesn't, it's not nice and neat in 3 days and you're finished with it. And I mean, I'm part of I joke with it and I say I'm part of kind of the rub some dirt on it and walk it off generation. I
Yeah.
mean, that was what I was taught all my life. And so when someone is, and even between guys, guys don't necessarily talk to other guys about it because they know if they're with their bunch of guys that they hang out with, a lot of times they're going to get ridiculed for it. Now, some of it is that's just how guys talk, and a lot of it, it just rolls off.
Yeah.
But if it's a consistent thing, that will eventually influence those guys to not do anything.
Right. Right. Exactly. What else we got?
Men should be allowed to have their concerns listened to and taken seriously. If a man decides to open up to you to become vulnerable, it is a serious and important concern. That kind of some of these kind of go together. I've realized since I've done this, this kind of goes along with when I go to my significant other, if she were to kind of downplay what I'm saying to her,
Mm-hmm.
um, men are all about respect. And if I come to my significant other and it gets downplayed or I get laughed at about it, whether she thinks it or not, that's disrespectful to me.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody wants to save face, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so when you're hitting me at the respect level, because I've always grown up that men should lead the household, men should do this, men should do that. Respect comes from that.
Well, it
And I
becomes
mean,
a war, right? Where you're
yeah,
sitting there and you're like Romeo and Juliet sitting there and you're like,
yeah,
but you're like the parents of Romeo and Juliet, where you're sitting there and you're just fighting back
yeah,
and forth and there's no communication because
yep,
everybody wants to, have a pissing contest and say,
yep,
well, you're being disrespectful. No, you're being disrespectful. And nobody
mhm,
just wants to shut the fuck up and sit there and be like,
yeah,
I'm sorry, right? That's the
exactly.
hardest thing you can ever do is sit there and say, I'm just going to shut the fuck up right now because I feel like you need to talk. And I
Yeah,
feel like this moment needs to be about you, right? Because if we do
exactly.
that, then that gives them free for all to just do it all the time, right? So
Yep.
that's in our mind. We're like, no, you're not going to, especially,
Hmm.
today's society where it's like, oh my gosh, I'm a strong, independent woman. You can't talk to me that way, right? And so nobody wants to just put the weapon down.
Exactly. And I'm all for independence and men being strong and women being strong and whatever they want to be. But at the end of the day, in a relationship, at some point, both sides are going to be weak and need to be dependent upon the other person.
But it's not even weak. I call it actual strength because
Hmm.
it's a lot easier to lash out and say, I'm tough, I'm strong, I can keep going. It is a lot harder to sit in your feelings, to be
Hmm.
okay to have those feelings and be okay to sit in someone else's feelings without
Hmm.
trying to fucking fix them or fix
Yep.
their problems or
Yep.
problem solve. It is a lot harder. That, to me, is the strongest thing you could possibly do.
Hmm.
We just misconstrue what strong and weak are, right?
Exactly. And like I even whether it's grief or marriage or all the analogy I give people is I say, you hear the old phrase that marriage is 50-50, and I look at them and go, bullshit,
Yeah.
it's not 50-50. I said, here's what I mean by that. I said, the percentage that you are in your marriage depends on the day and it changes every day. There
Yeah.
may be one day that my wife is at 20 and I have to be 80 that day. And I
Yeah.
said, that's fine. It's not going to be every day. I said, the next day we may level out to 50-50. A third day, it may be where I'm at 10 and she's at 90, but it fluctuates every day.
Mm-hmm.
Part of a relationship is sometimes you take up the slack for your partner to get through to that next day.
Right.
So the same thing goes with emotion and grief as it relates to all this. There are days I have my days, and there are days my wife has her days. If she's having her day and something's going on with my daughter, then I'll go deal with what my daughter, so my wife doesn't necessarily have to be concerned with it, so she
Right.
can deal with what she's dealing with.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. All right. What number are we on?
Let me, I need to get my glasses changed. Number seven, men should be allowed to be able to talk to significant others and for those significant others to listen versus listen to reply. Yes, there is a difference.
Right.
And now, I've said this to many women on the internet, and I always preface it with, "This is not a personal attack." I would say this as much to a man as I would say to a woman. So please don't take it as I'm jumping down your throat. But when we're communicating back and forth, if you're waiting for that one moment where I take a breath and all of a sudden you interject how my feelings or emotion are affecting you when you're supposed to be listening to me and whatever I'm saying to you, you're again subconsciously saying that my feelings do not matter and that yours are the most important ones in the room. Now, granted, most men are pretty much okay with that, but when we do come, for what little we're going to say to you, we want you to listen just like you want us to listen.
Hmm.
And but yeah, that's kind of that to me. That's what that means. Just like you don't want me listening and coming up with five different solutions for your problem, because that's how my ADHD brain works. You want me to listen, you want to vent, and you want me to go, okay, you feel better, you know,
You're
and
listening to understand instead of listening to counteract.
yeah. And so that's essentially why I put that, because I don't run across it a lot, but like online, I run, unfortunately, from a lot of women. In fact, the day I posted something about that, I literally had a woman come comment on this, goes, "Well, that's not how it is at all." And I went, "Have you ever been a man a day in your life?" No. I said, "Have you ever dealt with male situations a day in your life?" No. Then how do you know that's not how it is?
Assumptions and accusing.
Yeah, I said, you
Yeah.
are assuming that you know what is based on what you
Hmm.
see in society. But there's a reality of what men deal with. There's a lot of reality of what we deal with that we don't necessarily talk about.
Right. Well, and it's
So,
both dynamics, right? You never know. You could literally be sitting here and saying, "My wife is so happy." You could go home and your shit could be packed up because your
yeah.
wife is like, "I'm done." And
Yeah.
she's been done for months, but you haven't been intentionally dating, even though, because you're like, "I'm married. We don't do that anymore."
Hmm.
And so you're disconnected from them and you have no fucking idea what's in their mind. So
Hmm.
they're checking out for months and you're sitting there saying, "We're such a happy family,"
Hmm.
right? Yeah,
Hmm.
definitely.
Exactly.
Definitely. All right, what's
Uh,
the next?
let's see. Men shall be allowed to cry without judgment, without when the situation calls for it. Now, this is a hard one for probably 95, but 98% of men. Um, there is there's pretty much a societal stigma against men physically crying. About the only scenarios that men are allowed to cry in is one, war is pretty much acceptable because of the PTSD they get from it,
Yeah.
or when their favorite sports team wins a championship. Those are probably the two most acceptable reasons why men. In fact, my father-in-law, who's from the New England area, who's a diehard Patriots fan, my wife even said the first one that his team, who he's been since their inception, when they won that first Super Bowl, even he got misty-eyed, and he never does that. So, you know, it comes down to we've got to make it more acceptable for when there's a need, when there's a time and need for it, that they can do it, where people don't go, ah, look at him, he's being weak, he's being this, he's being that, because he's letting it get to him. No, in my case, like I tell people all the time, because I'm pretty much at this point, I'm just like, if you don't like my feelings, that's fine, there's the door, you can unfriend me, you can do whatever you want to do. But are you trying to tell me if you were in my situation and you watch from start to finish your son die right in front of you, that you wouldn't be emotional about it? No, I wouldn't. Bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
You're just saying that to save face in front of people.
Yeah. Well, and it's not easy. Again, like we were saying earlier, it's not easy for people to actually express their emotions and be okay with it.
Hmm.
It's a lot easier to get defensive, argumentative, say, I'm
Hmm.
allowed to do this. These are boundaries. And you're like, no, the fuck, they're not.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
not setting a boundary. You're getting defensive because you're getting irritated and agitated. Oh, that's a trigger. No, it's not a trigger.
Yeah.
You just don't want to feel the feelings.
Yep.
That's all it is. You don't want to
Yep.
feel that you need to change anything, right?
Yeah. And when it comes to that, I tell people all the time, I said, you can push, as it relates to grief, you can push the emotions away. You can overwork, you can,
Mm-hmm.
do things excessively like drink, drugs, promiscuity, all those things. But eventually it
Right.
will come out somewhere and you're going to pay for it somewhere, whether it's alcoholism or, catching something from someone or,
Mm-hmm.
you name it. And I really try to stress that, especially with the men that I talk with. I go, you've got to find an outlet, a you know a an acceptable outlet. Um, if you're getting to the point that your outlet and you're having dark thoughts and all that, and like I tell people, it's okay to ask for professional help.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if
And
you're,
I usually say, if it's not working, try something else. Don't sit
yeah,
there and say, I need to just keep trying. I need to keep doing this.
yeah,
I need to keep doing this. If it's not working, try something else. You can always go back to it. But if it's not
yep.
working, why are you repeating the definition of insanity, right?
Mhm. Let's see the next one. Men should be allowed to be given no time limit for their grief and given appropriate breaks when necessary.
Mm-hmm. And
And what
that's
I
in
mean,
all relationships, right?
that is definitely in all relationships.
Mm-hmm.
But what I mean by that is, honestly, for me, it's more of a generational thing. Like I said before, just the way I grew up, I was told that sure you can have these moments, but they need to be shortened to the point.
Mm-hmm.
They can't be public. They've got to be in private. You've got your
Yes.
3 bereavement days, that kind of thing. Um, the younger generations, from what I can tell, are getting better at it
Mm-hmm.
than say my generation. And even my generation, some here and there are getting a little better, but many of us are kind of the same. So
Well, and
even
grief can be in all aspects too. Grief can be, loss of a loved one, but it can also be
yeah,
loss of a relationship, loss of
mhm.
a friendship, loss of a, significant other, all these different things. And so telling somebody that you need to stop grieving for them before they're ready to, you're not going to like, it's not like, oh, okay, just because you said so. Just because
well,
you said so.
and even now, I get, not so much to me, but I get a lot of people that will comment to me when I post things online that they may be a year out, a year and a half out, or
Yeah.
some people several years out, and they still get people with comments of, well, are you still grieving, as like condescendingly. And our comment is, I hope you never have to deal with the loss of a child like we have. Only then will you understand.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what I mean by, no time limit, and just, if you don't like the fact that they're grieving, then don't say anything to them, because it's not going to change the fact that they lost a loved one.
Right.
So, and then
Definitely.
the last one is, men should be allowed to collaborate with fellow men and women grievers in the community for support and understanding. I say this just because when you get on places like Facebook or any of the other platforms, when you get into emotion based groups, it is always 99.5% women, and there's a very small percentage of men. And of that percentage, they're not active. They're in there, they'll read things, but they don't participate. And I try to tell at least men, when it comes to emotion, who better to talk to than someone who gets your situation?
Right.
And it's one of the reasons why I created everything I did, because I went into several groups. I couldn't find men, and I didn't necessarily want the exact same thing, but I at least wanted men that were kind of in the ballpark. They could
Right.
at least understand, and I just could not find it. And so that's kind of what I mean by that. But those are the commandments, if you will.
Love
Um,
it. Love it.
You know, they're kind of general specific to me just because I wanted to be able to relate to more than just grief because emotion is so broad. But at least in my case, it's grief related.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Now, we do have to wrap things up here, but
Okay.
are there any final words you would like to give to the listeners today?
Yeah, two quick things. The thing I will tell men when it comes to emotion is I've been a man all my life, but you baffle me, men. You are the only creature on this planet that you cannot stand when people tell you what to do and you get all insulted and disrespected when someone tells you how to do something about your life. But when it comes to emotion, you let everybody and their brother tell you exactly how to do, what to do, and when to do it.
Mm,
Why are you allowing society to tell you to do it? Who cares what they think about the situation that you are personally dealing with? Even a fellow men in the grief community, if they don't like how I'm grieving, so what? Move on to someone else.
hmm
I mean, I'm not here to cater to you. I'm here to share how I'm doing. If I can resonate with you, great, wonderful. If I'm not your cup of tea, fine, move to someone else. And then the last thing I will tell people as it relates to grief and emotion is the quote I came up with that I tell people all the time is though I strive for the mountaintop, it is the valley in which I live. And what I mean by that is, sure, we all want to live in the glory of getting to the top and be able to see the wonderful views that life produces. But the reality is it's in the valley that teaches us the strength and the fortitude to be able to make that climb to get there. Will you always be on the mountaintop? No. I can tell you several times I've probably fallen off or been kicked off the mountaintop and I've had to climb back up. But you have to understand that you're going to have your low moments in life. It's a part of life. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And it's
mm.
what you do with that information that will determine where you go next. And all of us want to get to the mountaintop. We'll use that to your advantage and start climbing, is what I tell people.
Love that. I love that. That was a powerful, powerful ending. Thank you so much today for
Thank you.
joining us, Jason. We'll definitely have to have you on for future episodes.
Awesome.
And I will have information for you guys to contact Jason directly if you are struggling with feeling your emotions, you're a male and you want to seek out another male, you're struggling with grieving. I will have all of that in the description. Thank you so much for listening, and we will talk to you next time. Bye.